Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm here to give you guys my Fear the Walking Dead Season 2, Episode 13 review, and this episode is called Date of Death. And this episode came out from what it says on Wikipedia on September 25th, 2016. And I do gotta say, while a lot of people probably won't think this is like one of those really good or great episodes of Fear the Walking Dead, I think this episode kind of does what it needs to do to get its story across. You know, it really has good character work and it has some nice scenes in it. So I'm just gonna start off by talking about it. Essentially, this kind of gave us a little bit of character work with Travis's character, and I'm just gonna kind of start off by talking about um, where he went, kind of everything that would happen with him, because that was kind of the main storyline throughout this episode. Um, and like I said, this episode kind of only has one story, but I'm not gonna go over everything chronologically because, quite frankly, it's gonna make the review really, really sloppy. But I'm just going to kind of kick it off with the scene at the bone where Chris ended up shooting that farmer. So let's just start off by talking about that. So you could see that Travis is kind of shooken up about this, but he has to kind of get back into reality um, and help James with his wound. So Travis goes to get some supplies and stitch him up, and what ends up happening is when they go to eat dinner later on that night, um, you know, James is trying everything that he can to be tough about this and try to tough through it, but Travis pretty much knows that he's bullshitting and says that if you don't tell me what's going on, then I can't help you. So he pulls Chris aside and gets pissed off at him that Chris showed no remorse towards the fact that he ended up killing that farmer. And Chris says um, that you have to do what you have to do in this type of world. So pretty much the storyline is that Chris is ahead of the curve, that he knows what risks are necessary for the zombie apocalypse type of world, and Travis doesn't want to take these risks. Um, and that's kind of like where Chris and Travis are having conflict. And what I liked about this is Chris even talked about how he's also kind of going with the crowd, because he talked about how when he was picked on in middle school during recess, which that didn't really make any sense because you don't usually have recess in middle school, but you just have to go with it. When he was picked on by the football team, you said just to go with the crowd, and that's what I'm doing here. And Travis says that this is a completely different case, and he says that um, yeah, and Travis says that you don't want to go along with these guys because these guys are just savages, um, and they're just gonna lead you down to a dark path. But Chris isn't listening, and what I and I thought this was a nice scene. And then later on, when the gang just wants to leave and go to San Diego, um, and Travis knows that James isn't in a good state to travel right now, so they try to talk him out of it because he only gave the guy a week to recover, and they ran out of chickens and supplies and stuff like that, and um, then but the group won't, but the group's not listening. They try to go to San Diego, and Travis like, I told you, San Diego isn't a good place to go right now, but nobody's listening, and Chris just wants to go along with the pack. So they put him in the bed of the truck, and they end up driving. But because of because the guy hasn't recovered, he nearly dies, and Travis forces them to stop the truck, and the group talks about possibly putting down James, but Travis wants them to give James more time to recover, and he said that he's not going to let them put James down. He said just to give it more time. and Travis threatens to shoot them, and Brandon's kind of like, you don't have the balls to shoot me, and he shoots his gun, and pretty much Travis says he's doing this to kind of teach Chris a lesson. And then later on, we find out that the reason that this is happening is James talked about a story that when one of their friends, Troy, turned into the infected, they made a pact not to let that happen to them ever again. And he kind of tells that whole story. So I did like that. And then what happens is Chris comes in with food for Travis, and Chris is trying to be that son and say that he gets why he's doing this. You're trying to teach me a lesson that all life is precious, and that you should try to stick out for somebody no matter how long you've known them. And Chris says that he's afraid that that Brandon and stuff would possibly do that to me, because if they're doing it to somebody like James, who they've known since they were 6 years old, then there's definitely going to do that to me. And then Travis and Chris hug, but then we find out that it was a trap. Chris tackles Travis to the ground, and Brandon and the other guy come in and hold Travis gunpoint, so that way they can come in and execute James. And obviously this made Travis upset, and this leaves Chris to make a decision about leaving for San Diego, but Travis doesn't want to go with him. And Travis tries to talk Chris into staying with him, saying that we could find a place on our own because we were doing fine. I can walk now. But Chris just isn't listening. He says that the best thing you can do for me is to let me go. And he ends up driving away, and the last thing that Travis says to Chris is, "Damn you, Chris," or "God damn you, Chris." And then the reason why this is called Date of Death is, one of the main reasons is because Travis dug the grave for the farmer, and he had all the graves like set up where you put a stake in it and it would write on it. And what ended up happening is Travis says he didn't know his name, and he went and found his name and his birthday. We find out that he was born the same day as Chris was, February 12th. And I did kind of like that connection as well. So I think Travis tried to get Chris to make that type of connection, but Chris just doesn't have any of it. So then we find out that Travis just ended up walking. He went to go to, I guess, to the Abigail boat or something, and went to the beach that found the hotel. And this is when we saw his scene where, in the last episode, where he ended up being by himself. And then then this kind of brings us to the beginning of the episode, when all the people, a ton of people were trying to get into the hotel because they saw that it had electricity, and everybody in the hotel can't let the people in. So then Madison ends up seeing Travis and tells him to let Travis in, and then they're happy to see each other. But you could see that Travis is messed up about something. We didn't necessarily know what it was. And then Travis just tells Madison all this stuff. And Travis is just upset that he felt like he failed his wife and his mother, and Chris's mother, on protecting Chris. And he says that he's upset because the last thing that he said to Chris before he left was, "God damn you, Chris." But he forgot to tell Chris's mother, his ex-wife, that he loved her before he put her down. And he also talks about how Chris has always kind of been this way, in a sense, in the real, before the zombie apocalypse, because he felt Chris was always kind of mad at Travis and his mother, because they took away a real family from him. They took away a real family from him. and he's never forgiven him for that. And I was at fault for this one, but I can't be at fault for what happened now. And he apologizes to Madison for not taking her side about the situation where her and where Chris and Alicia got into that situation from season 2, episode 7. But he said that we're parents first, and we always stand up for our kids. And this makes Madison want to go talk to Alicia. And I kind of liked that scene because this kind of prompts Madison to talk to Alicia. And she admits to Alicia that her father's accident, or whose name is Steven, wasn't an accident. It was suicide. And Alicia doesn't believe any of this and wants to know how she knows that. And we find out that he ended up writing a note saying that, I love you all, but I can't deal with this anymore. And she always kept it a secret because of Nick. Because Steven had a lot of Nick's... Nick has a lot of Steven in him. And what ends up happening is Madison put so much love towards Nick because she didn't want Nick to become like her father, and she thought Alicia already had it figured out. But I loved you just as the same as Nick. And it kind of ends with them saying that they love each other, and it's kind of like this, and it's like this nice mother-daughter moment. But then we have the ending of the episode after Travis is taking a shower, like he's broken. We see another group come up towards the hotel, and it's Brandon with these other guys that we have never seen before. And one person we don't see is Chris, so I'm assuming that's going to tie in somehow. But that's definitely going to be... I thought the ending, though, was a nice cliffhanger. And I think it's going to be a nice little story right there. So, overall, I do got to say that this episode is actually a pretty decent episode. Like I said, it's not really like a good episode, but I would say if you want to... this is definitely a much-watch episode. I definitely got to say, I loved the storyline with Travis and Chris in this episode. It really makes this episode. For that reason alone, I do got to say this is a pretty good episode, actually. While it's not necessarily like an episode that is like one of these great episodes, it definitely has a good story arc. It kind of transforms Travis, because he even says that he probably would have let everybody put Brandon's game, put James down if it meant doing right by Chris. So it kind of was kind of a way to get for Chris's way of life to kind of interfere with Travis's way of life, and I really enjoyed this. And I liked that father-son dynamic they added within in this episode. So I thought this episode was... I would say it was actually a pretty decent episode. I can't really say it was a good one, but it was a good character development. So I'm going to give this episode... I'm going to give it a C+. I can't quite give it a B-, but I'm going to give it a C+. I thought it was pretty good. And people thought it was a mixed... this episode was like a mixed bag. But they did like the Travis and Chris story arc. They thought that that was highly praised. And obviously, people on, someone on IGN said it was an 8 out of 10 episode, for the same reasons. But some people, on IMDb, liked this episode. Some people didn't like it. Someone gave it like a 9 out of 10. It's not a 9 out of 10, but whatever. But that's pretty much the end of this review. Please make sure you guys leave your thoughts in the comments of what you guys thought of this episode. And make sure you guys subscribe to this channel for more content and click on the bell, so that way every time I upload a video, you guys will get the notifications for it. And make sure you guys do the same thing for my CM Brothers YouTube channel. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.